when I said in the last part that I see no evidence that anything of tangible value resulted from speculation, well, obviously, tangible things do result from speculation, otherwise, people wouldn't do it. What I should have said is that I see no evidence that anything of tangible value that has any sort of benefit or that in any manner augments the general welfare uh, results, because I don't see that I don't see how it could. And when you look at this in terms of this trickle down economics, which really the seeds of that happened when Jimmy Carter was president, but it went full blown when Reagan assumed office, which never could have happened without the presidency of Jimmy Carter. But when you look back at before the so-called Great Depression, the 1920s, there's these romantic ideals regarding the left bank in Paris, the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo, um, Jean Cocteau, uh, Stravinsky, all of the people from that era. I mean, it's the way it's romanticized. It sounds like it would be a fabulous time to be alive. It would be great to have been able to live there and experience that. But to a very large degree or to a very large extent, the people that are in the 1%, so to speak, had the same sort of benefits statistically nowadays that they did back then. And what they did with this bounty, booty, or however you want to look at it, these enormous tax breaks, was they went to Paris and they partied it up. All kinds of wild women and wild sex orgies, nude dancing, nude nightclubs, and this sort of thing was happened all over the world. It was going on in Berlin. It was going on in Shanghai. These are the sorts of things that happen. Now, I'm a New York Giant fan. I'm in New York State here. These guys make tremendous amounts of money. I could recall Lawrence Taylor, of course, the New York Giant fan. You have to be a fan of Lawrence Taylor. He is the greatest football player that ever lived, especially in terms of linebackers. But I always like Harry Carson too. But the point is that nowadays some of these football players, basketball players, whatnot, make tremendous amounts of money. And what do they do with the money? What do we see that they do with it? They buy these big houses and live a life of luxury essentially, and then on the other hand you have these conservatives saying things like, well, they earned it. Well, it's not the point of whether you earn money or not. It's what you do with it. Do you actually need this money? Because there's a certain point where money becomes an absolute surplus and you start doing foolish things with it. Now, you could debate whether it's foolish to use cocaine and buy prostitutes, or be an alcoholic or a heroin addict or whatever. I mean, I don't really care as long as it doesn't affect me in some adverse way. I'm not going to get involved in criticizing that in any manner. But my point is that when you use government to create policies And these policies, at best, result in this profligacy of money, these huge surpluses of money that assume tangible forms in terms of, I got 20 girlfriends. I got a private chateau over in France, and I got this villa in Italy, and I fly around the world, and women love me, and I pay them money, and I buy champagne, caviar, whatever. Those things do not have a direct benefit. They don't augment the general welfare of the United States of America. The only thing that they benefit the individuals that have these surpluses. And it's arguable even if it's of benefit to them. I mean, I don't care. They're free. I'm all for freedom. If they have that money and they want to spend it, I don't care. But at the same time, do they use the roads? Do they use the infrastructure? Do they benefit in any manner by the United States? If you have this extra surplus, it goes back to something that John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you could do for your country. That used to be a pretty popular motto, mantra, however you want to refer to it in the United States, and it's something that's being ignored and that we have to get back to. And the first way that you get back to it is through progressive taxation. Now, people will tell you, well, all that progressive taxation is it's just a form of punishment. You're assuming this position that you blame us for. It's not a form of punishment. What it is it's a means by which prices are controlled. Because if you have a group of people going around that have these enormous surpluses of money to spend, they're going to start buying things at prices that ordinarily a regular human being would not buy or pay for. And the result of that are that artists, artisans, fashion designers, practically anyone that creates things that have some special quality, they're not going to have to create it for the vast population of the United States. They're going to create it for this small coterie of people that are going to pay enormous amounts of money for it. And the reason that that happens is because they have these surpluses of money that they don't have anything else to spend it on. The belief is that, oh, well, they're going to be like the guy in Atlas Shrugged, and they're going to make Empire State Buildings and Golden Gate Bridges and all of these things. And it just doesn't happen. The reason it doesn't happen is because a lot of those things were created for different purposes. And the reasons and purposes for which those things were created no longer exist. And that whole circumstance and those relationships that existed at that period of time could not be duplicated. And if anything, the degrees of debt that exist now, that started out, like I said, at 1 trillion and now they're 14 trillion, and people are making less money. What people are forgetting and what they're failing to see, and I've said it before, that the pie gets smaller, and it seems like, geez, Tommy, that's not right. What do you mean the pie gets smaller? Well, the reason that one of the reasons that these conservatives want tax breaks for the very richest people, they'll say, well, we're doing it as a form of discipline on Congress so that the Congress won't spend any more money. But what they're really actually doing is they don't want these rich people that give them money to experience inflation. And if the tax rates keep going down, like Clinton cut them, Bush cut them, then these people are able to be insulated from the effects of inflation, whereas we're not. The statistics show that in real, in the, I hate to say real, but this is the only way to explain it. In real dollar terms, we make less money than we did in prior times. And these sorts of things, the only way that they could be reversed is by initiating and deploying a new progressive income tax system. And you know, you're going to have to tax people at lower levels, not just the 1%, because you're not going to get enough revenue from them. But I'm completely and totally in favor of progressive taxation. And I'm totally opposed to, and have always been opposed to, flat taxes. And there is absolutely no conservative basis or anything that the founding fathers said or anything else that supports these sorts of ideas now that the conservatives are promoting in their campaigns for the presidency and whatnot.